Welcome to the Costa Property Podcast, the podcast that turns your dreams of owning a piece of paradise on the Costa del Sol into reality. I'm Warner Laurie, and I'm joined by my co-host and wives, Sandra Laurie.
Join us as we embark on navigating the ins and outs of real estate and relocation to this beautiful region.
We're not just about market trends, we're about sharing real-life experiences, because we know the struggle firsthand, and I've helped many people navigate this challenge also.
If you're dreaming of your perfect Costa del Sol home and want to get real, no-frills, expert advice, then you're absolutely in the right place. Join us each week as we share honest insights and information that will guide your journey. We're back with an update for everybody. We're going to dive into quarter two. So what's been happening actually on the ground in the Costa del Sol, particularly in Benalmádena, since our last update in quarter one? What's going on, who's buying and what's influencing buyer behaviour? And we'll jump into all of that. But first, I want to get an insight from you in terms of what are you seeing? Not necessarily what's driving what you're seeing, but what are you actually seeing at the moment?
Quarter two has been a big difference from quarter one. So just to give you an example, there has been less traffic on the property portals. What that means is obviously there's still a problem with supply and demand. We still have a lot of buyers out there for the properties that are available, which is keeping the market good. And W Costa Properties are having record months with exclusive listings. So this is great for our business. When somebody's now coming and making inquiries for properties, they're very serious. You know, they're ready, then they're ready to go, which is great for us because there's no time wasters in the market now, because they know if they're not ready to go, then somebody else is going to buy the property.
Footfall is definitely down compared to quarter one. So, as you say, less inquiries coming through the portals, but a higher quality of buyer is coming across. So I think I just want to elaborate on that a little bit more. You're saying that not time wasters ready to go. I would disagree with you on that a little bit, actually, and this is kind of educational for our buyers as well. They're not always fully ready to go, but where they are ready to go is they have made the decision firmly in their mind in terms of what they want, but they may not necessarily be ready with all of the components in terms of mortgage if they need finance, all of those finer details, which we can talk about this a little bit more down the line because this is impacting in another way. But I think their mindset is clear on what they want. They know the areas they want to be in. They know the type of property. They know their budget. Okay. So I would say they're partly there, but their mindset is ready to go. But yeah, so it has been different, I guess, to quarter one. Quarter one started out phenomenally well. Great signals. Quarter two has been a little bit different from my point of view. April started out slower than quarter one, and there was many components that impacted that. But thankfully, we have seen that return to somewhat more normal waters across May and into June, where I think confidence has started to return into the market again. People are listing their properties for sale because they realise that the market is still good and it's still a good time to sell and it's still a good time to buy. The Costa del Sol continues to show great value for what you get from your money in real estate compared to other popular destinations and locations in the world. But if we go down to what we've talked about now, what's actually shaping the buyer's behaviour? So, you know, what's driving those behaviours? What was behind, I guess, the slowdown that we saw in April and then that confidence return in May? I think one thing from my point of view, just to pitch in, I just keep seeing so much negativity about Spain in the press. So be it tourists, housing crisis, Spain is full, tourists go home. It's like somebody in the media has taken this envious stance against Spain because Spain has reported a lot of growth in terms of its GDP over the last number of years. And it's like they're saying, this has to stop now. No more going to Spain and we want to share. So every time we open a social media page or open a newspaper or talk to clients, they continuously talk about, oh my God, things are really bad over there. Spain doesn't want people anymore. I'm considering whether this is an option for me moving forward. I'm considering even if I want to holiday there, if what I'm reading is true. So what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, there is a lot of unrest, especially with the press, the media around the world. It feels as if they're quite jealous of what Spain are doing. But on the ground, we don't see any of that, especially not in the Costa del Sol and Benalmádena where we're based. We see people with a dream that want to come and buy a second home or relocate to this beautiful part of the country, for the lifestyle, all that 320 sunshine days a year. That is still the dream with people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's important for me to emphasize this. If you're buying along the Costa del Sol in the very popular destinations for second home owners and where people tend to holiday, you're not buying in a protest zone. You're buying in one of the most welcoming, stable parts of Spain that has built its economy on, cultural melting pots, on people from many different places all over the world, nationalities, finding a place where they belong along the Costa del Sol. So I think it's important to bust the myths on that and set some context. Yes, the protests part that we see, that is absolutely happening in certain parts of Spain. And rightly so, because some cities there is massive housing crises. But along the Costa del Sol, we have a different type of buyer, we see a different type of consumer, and we're not seeing protests like other parts of Spain. So I just wanted to, again, clean that message up. I think one of the biggest things that happened in April as well was changes with tourist licenses. So if you intend to purchase a property in Spain that you intend to use for investment, i.e. rent it out, you have historically, traditionally been required to obtain a tourist license to rent that property out to allow you to advertise it on property portals like Airbnb, for example. So this year we saw changes in the rules around obtaining a tourist license. So from April of this year, the community of owners, who are the owners of the different property complexes, they are now allowed to vote whether their property complex permits and allows tourist licenses. So this is a new rule because previously each town kind of led the way in terms of what they wanted. Now they've taken this a step forward. So where you have urbanizations or complexes that have communities where owners come together and vote for what they want to happen in the community, how they want budgets to be spent for maintenance, they now have the right to decide whether they want to permit properties in those urbanizations and in those complexes, whether they want them rented out for short-term lets, Airbnbs, so on and so forth, which I absolutely understand. Because if it's a residential complex, you may not want groups there holidaying when you're trying to operate life and go about your daily routines, work, schools, etc. But what has happened here then is, which unfortunately we often see, a new law or rule is released without really any guidance of how people should operate this. So community of owners are kind of left sitting in limbo going, okay, these rules changed in April. We'll bring it up in our AGM, our annual general meeting. But our annual general meeting isn't until August. So, okay, we'll sit in limbo then from April to August to kind of decide what people really want to do. But the reality is properties are still going to be advertised for sale between April and August, likely in that urbanisation. Now, if somebody wants to buy a property in that urbanisation and they plan to use it themselves but also rent it out, they're not going to be able to get a guarantee until the community of owners votes in the AGM as to their intention moving forward. So what has that done? That has basically said to the investor market, this isn't stable right now. This isn't secure. You need to wait until the AGM. You need to wait until we voted with our intention moving forward. So people that are intending to invest from that point of view, they have really gone on pause, Warner, right? They've really kind of said, I need to either find another property or I need to wait.
Yeah, that's you hit it the nail on the head, Sandra. That is exactly what happened, and that's why in April there was stormy waters, because it didn't matter where they bought. If they looked at one apartment and they said, okay, that's lovely, I want to buy that, and they couldn't get the tourist license. If they went to another complex, it was the same situation. So they were a bit confused because, if you have a dream and you want to buy a property and you come to Spain and you don't really know anything that's going on, and all you want to do is buy a property, but there's all these rules and red tape and regulations, and you're totally right. The government should have sat with a governing body or something and says, look, we're going to bring in this rules. This is why we're bringing in this rules. Instead, they just basically brought in the rules, and the community office is just an admin office. You know, they make sure people pay it, they get people to repair stuff in the complex. So it's unfair to be bombarded with different owners and lawyers and everything else to ask for an answer that they don't have because they don't know the law themselves.
Yeah, just to give everyone a little bit more context. So like, let's say, you know, somebody identifies a property that they want to buy and it's in a block where there has always been tourist licenses allowed, okay? As a real estate agency, we have to say to them, okay, yes, they've always been allowed. There's been a precedence there, but your community hasn't had their AGM yet. So they haven't released a certificate of intention of how they want to manage this topic moving forward. So even though it's been allowed in the past, we can't guarantee you that it's going to be permitted in the future. So what do we try to do in that situation? If the person still wants to proceed with the sale, we try to contact the administration office for the community of owners to obtain minutes from previous meetings that kind of shows if there's any negativity or it's been raised in previous meetings going forward, to kind of maybe say, okay, this could be an issue or not. And we also ask the community, can they issue an intention before the AGM to say that, look, they know that there's not going to be any problem with this. That's a big ask, okay? Because we don't really know until the day how this is going to roll in terms of a vote. So from a real estate perspective, we can't give any guarantee. Lawyers can't give any guarantees. And the community of owners are just bombarded with these questions for guidance that really they can't give. So April was an absolute mess because of this, as you can imagine. And it caused the investor market, that second home owner market, with the intention to rent out when not in use, to really, really dry up. Now, we're starting to see updates coming out from the different property portals reporting on sales across the month of April, which are also down as a result of this. And this is exactly what we saw happen in the market. So it's no secret that things are down. How this is going to go moving forward, okay, it'll get clearer when the AGM minutes come out in terms of how the communities want to vote. And what we are going to be able to do then as professional real estate agents is guide investors who want to have the ability to rent their property towards properties, towards communities, towards areas where we know that the community of owners permits short-term lets. And then for buyers like you, like people listening, you just need to make this part of your search criteria, and you need to build that in to your plan, to your expectation management, that, okay, I might have to look at more properties than I initially thought, okay? Because not every community, not every building is going to match up with my long-term plans for my investment in Spain. Would you agree with that, Warner?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And because, you know, we lost those sales, the prices are starting to stabilise, which is great, because then it opens all the properties up to different markets that before investors would just buy them. So, you know, with the prices stabilising, we start to see second homeowners come through. Some Spanish people are starting to buy them. You know, the government are trying to change it so that the Spanish residents can start buying the properties. To be fair to everyone, I understand what they're trying to do, but they didn't do it properly. So we have to kind of all second guess between lawyers, agents, buyers, and sellers. So it has been a bit of a roller coaster.
And I think we're still in the early stages of this. You know, will they then go and start to panic on the back of sales being down in April and lost taxes as a result of this and go, oh, maybe we made a boo-boo? Just back to what you said there around prices resetting. I agree with you on that comment, but from a different point of view. I don't think they're resetting on the basis that they're dropping. I think that they're resetting on the basis that they're stabilising and they're not increasing. Okay, so I'm not seeing that property prices are taking a big nosedive because supply and demand. We don't have enough stock for the buyer. Okay, but what I am seeing is that those investor buyer, they've now started to kind of reduce in the market, which means that it's allowing a little bit more time for, say, a Spanish investor that wants to buy as a second home for them and their families, or they want to buy a home from family. It's allowing time for them, because previously that investor that was maybe more international that wanted to buy for renting out, they were very quick off the mark and they were able to move very, very fast, which meant they kind of won the race. So it's just allowing more people to come into the market from a time perspective. But I wouldn't say from a pricing perspective, we've not seen that happen yet, right?
No, we haven't seen a drop in price, but what we have seen is, when people go out to value the properties and they overvalue the property because they're speculating that someone will come and buy it.
And I'd say your job right now is probably harder than ever, because if, for people that don't know, in our business, Warner is the person who goes out and does the valuations and does the majority of the property listing. Now, if a seller has been watching the market for a period of time, okay, they've probably been going, oh, I can get really whatever I want for this. Now, if they've not staying kind of up to date and educated with what's happening in the market, they might have a false expectation. So I'd say your job right now is harder than ever in terms of matching their expectation as a seller to what's actually happening in the market. We're still seeing situations of, my cousin got this, that they went about this, John in the pub did this. You can't listen to your cousin and you can't listen to John in the pub because they've maybe not sold in the last 3 months. So your job has become harder from an expectation management perspective to ensure that we list at the right price. Otherwise, they're going to be potentially waiting a little bit longer. And to support us with that, we've spent a lot of time this quarter developing some new frameworks to really go through the valuating and listing process in minute detail to ensure that we inform the seller of who their market is, who their buyer is, really clearly upfront. We align our marketing strategy to that so that they walk away from the meeting with us crystal clear about what we think the valuation is and who's going to buy it. Now, what that means is we will not be for everybody, okay? Because some people out there will have a higher expectation than what actually their property is worth or what's actually happening in the market, and that's fine. You go and you work with another real estate agent who's prepared to tell you yes, 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 and give you whatever you want, but you'll pay the consequence of that in terms of your property won't be marketed correctly. You'll rule yourself out of the race early on because you've priced out of the market and you won't have a marketing strategy that aligns with exactly who your buyer is.
Yeah, totally correct. And we have lost a couple of listings because of that situation. It causes me too much problems to list the property at a higher price that I don't feel comfortable with. And, it's a conversation I have with the owner to say, I don't feel comfortable with this price because it's not going to sell. And if you want to list it at this price, then unfortunately, you need to try other agencies because down the line, that's going to be a problem for me.
And for them. So, right, let's say that they're lucky to get what they want. Okay, let's say they are lucky to get what they want and the person requires finance. Then you run another risk where the bank comes out and values the property and the tasador, who's the valuator, goes, no, we're not valuing up, so you can't get the finance. So the seller then has lost time, potentially lost other interested buyers. Maybe they've even gone on to stages of their life and made an offer on a property. And honestly, it just causes too much distress. So again, we operate from a place of value. We will tell you the truth. We align with what's really going on in the market. We're trying to save problems and scenarios for buyers and sellers further down the line. And we accept that if you don't like our answer and you don't like our approach, we may not be the agents for you. And that's fine too.
Yeah, that's totally correct, because not only are you taking on a listing, but you're taking on a headache if you don't feel comfortable with the price. And when you do that commitment to that owner, they expect results quite quickly. So I always, as you said, we have no framework. Who is the buyer for your property? And we look at it in a pie chart kind of thing. And from obviously my experience as well, we can narrow it down. This is your buyer. This is where the finances are. And this is where the mortgage companies are actually valuing the property you're at. So if you're 30 or 40,000 over that, you're not going to sell it.
Unless you have a cash buyer, of course. And they're less and less in the market now because why? Of the changes in the tourist licence laws that were implemented in April. So there's more things to consider now from a selling point of view for sure, as well as a buying point of view. Look, another thing that I think is fair to talk about was we had the cancellation of the golden visa since Q1. Now, what did that do in Q1? It was an incentive for people to move quicker. So people that were planning to utilise the golden visa initiative as their mechanism to buy a property in Spain and entry into Spain, they accelerated because they knew that in Q2 they wouldn't have had that benefit anymore. I don't want to give this one too much airtime because it's gone, but I think it's worth mentioning that when we're comparing market from Q1 to Q2, yes, this only added to the positive results from Q1, then has caused small impact in Q2. It sounds like we're talking kind of a lot of doom and gloom, and I guess we're not. You know, we're still seeing a huge recovery from May to June, bumper months in May, excellent months, but everybody saw the impact in June as a result of the different things going on in the market that were shaping the buying behaviour. Okay, so who's buying right now and what are they looking for, Warner?
Coming up to the summer months, we still have the second homeowners looking for the perfect property. And when we do list the perfect property, we find that we sell them fast as long as we market it correctly. We also have a lot of people relocating from all over Europe. They want to come to Spain with a family. So that is a big one, especially villas at the moment. They're all looking for villas, which there is a short supply of good villas in the market. So the prices there are holding steady for them. And yeah, we have some investors buying properties that have had the AGM and they know they can get the tourist license. So we have them as well. And the residents of Spain or the Costa del Sol, they're starting to buy in the market as well. So it's very healthy just now. So as you say, properties are king, and we've had really great months for listing exclusive properties. So a win-win for us.
Yeah, I have really seen more families this quarter than ever before, you know, in terms of buying a property here and wanting to make that move quickly, or buying a property that they intend to use as a second home for a few years while the kids finish high school or whatever, and then plan to make a move as a family and enjoy it together when all the families can be in the same place at the same time. That's been an interesting one, and it's been a nice one to watch. You've probably done more family tours this quarter than ever before, which has been interesting. And that buyer has definitely been, that family buyers, it's been from other parts of Spain, which has been very interesting, coming from other cities in Spain like Seville and Madrid, and they can get more value down this end for their money and want to explore a different type of lifestyle for their family. But also Danish markets, very, very strong, looking for that premium villa property. Lots of interest still from the Netherlands, and the Swedish buyer has started to make an appearance again this quarter, and they've been quiet for the last 2 years, I would say, due to impacts of exchange rates. So that's been interesting to see back in. What have we seen? I think for us this quarter, we've seen a lot of Irish interested in properties from 250 to 350k, 1 and 2 bedrooms, close to the beach, walking distance to the beach, that they just want to use as a second home. I'm not sure, are they just drawn to us because of our Irish link and they are interested in working with us because you like to work with people that you feel that you know and understand your culture? Or is it that they're just starting to emerge back into the market? So it would be good when we start to compare notes with other agencies just to see if the Irish are starting to make waves in the market again, or is the demographic just kind of drawn to us because I'm Irish, obviously. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. But we have seen interest from the Irish market this year, and we've had this quarter 5 Irish buyers, which has been great. So yeah, and the UK buyer is still here, so resilient. I admire the UK buyer so much, irrelevant of what is thrown at them from the Brexit point of view, regardless of what visa restrictions you put on it, they're still determined to follow their dream, buy that bolt hole in the sun that they eventually plan to retire over to. So I really love their determination and the resilience. And when we actually look at our podcast statistics and who's listening, linking in to subscribe to our newsletter and downloading all of our freebies, we're still seeing that, you know, there's about 40% UK, 25% Irish, small mix from Northern Europe and still a lot of interest coming from the US. So that's quite interesting and a reflection of what we're seeing on the ground here.
And a lot of UK people are taking up the non-lucrative visa option as well, which is great to see. I think they've got over the Brexit headache, and now they're saying, okay, we just have to kind of go through this path, but once we do, then, we know that we can still have our dream of retiring in Spain.
I forgot about the Polish buyer as well. Anything that's kind of 250 below is really been snapped up by Polish buyers this quarter from our point of view. A lot of interest, lots of inquiries. They tend to work with Polish agents, which is natural from a language barrier perspective, but we do still see interest from them to view our properties when we have listed them exclusively. So they're still here and quite a prominent buyer at the moment in the market as well. Yeah, like all of these interested buyers still following their dream. The headlines are not deterring them. They know what they want. They're doing their homework. They're doing their due diligence. It's really encouraging to see. Okay, so Benalmádena. So this quarter in Benalmádena, from my perspective, the feedback that we keep getting from buyers don't know Benalmádena, it keeps outperforming their expectations. So when they have been to other towns or locations on the Costa del Sol, they understand that they can't necessarily get as much as they want for their budget. They come to Benalmádena because it offers something for everyone across all price points, from 200 right up to beautiful properties over 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 million. They start to see what they can get for that. They are always really surprised. And then when they scratch the surface and realise the community here, the international schools, international hospitals, they're even more surprised. So I think Benalmádena is definitely outperforming people's expectations in terms of what you can get for your money.
I totally agree. Benalmádena has it all. We went a holiday myself the first time to the Canary Islands, and it was the first time I'd been in the Canary Islands, and it was lovely. But when you went outside the hotel, there was nothing there. So then we really knew when we came back to our hometown in Benalmádena how people chose Benalmádena, because there's so much happening here. Restaurants, families, places to go. So we understand now that, sometimes we take it for granted what we have, but what we have is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention, obviously it didn't have the infrastructure and facilities. It was an island. But how expensive the restaurants were compared to Spain. The majority of the restaurants that we went in, bottle of house white wine, you couldn't get a decent bottle of wine for less than €30. It was unbelievable compared to here, where you can get a good bottle of Spanish house white wine for, €14-15 up, of course. But I was just shocked, and really made me assess how spoilt we are here, not only from an infrastructure and things to do perspective, but also from a cost of living. There's definitely more value for money here in mainland Spain. So that was interesting. Yeah, look, Benalmádena is definitely one of the most versatile and balanced areas on the coast. If you want to learn more about Benalmádena, why we love it so much, definitely check out our episodes on Benalmádena, which I will link here in the show notes. And you can find out more really about why we love it and why we think it's one of the most underrated locations on the Costa del Sol. I think it's important to note as well, as we start to wrap up, because we've closed through the factors impacting the market. I think it's important to say, again, that the buyers that want to buy on the Costa del Sol, they're buying because they understand that Spain is not just a market. It's a move for a life and a lifestyle. It's a destination that offers you something that you just will not get at home. From culture to traditions to safety to lifestyle, slowness of life, a different way to live. It really makes you appreciate life in a different way that people are just not getting in their home countries anymore. So it's more than just bricks and mortar. It's more than just an investment. It's an investment in a lifestyle. And I can see from people that are really coming through and really serious about still investing on the Costa del Sol, that they have made that correlation in their mind. They know that they're investing in a lifestyle that they love, that they've holidayed in, that they've tried and tested, and they just want more of it, right?
Yeah, no, totally true. Spain has still kept the culture, you still have the ferias, it is a safe place to be. And, it offers something for everyone.
Amazing. So yeah, look, different things for you to consider this quarter, particularly the call out if you're buying to rent out when it's not in use. If you are buying for that purpose, you will have more things to think about in your property search, and you definitely need to highlight that to your real estate agent upfront to avoid disappointment. Different things to think about if you're a seller, for sure, in terms of, is your property valuation expectation still relevant in today's market if you want to achieve a good and professional sale? And different things to think about if you're a family. Have you considered Benalmádena? What's your budget? Can you get what you want in other towns, locations and areas on the Costa del Sol? Don't be deterred, or don't pay too much attention to the headlines. You are not going to be investing in a protest zone. These are massively exaggerated. So I need to give you confidence on that. You're still buying in a great location that really has built its community, culture, economy on the fact that different nationalities live together along the Costa del Sol. So if you've been thinking about buying here on the Costa del Sol, or even just exploring what's possible for you, we offer free, no pressure consultations to help you get clear on your options, understand what's happening in the market and figure out the right next step for you. Head over to www.wlcostaproperties.net to book your free consultation, or send us a message on WhatsApp. You'll find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you have found today's episode interesting. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening into today's episode on the Costa Property Podcast. Another fantastic episode learning about the highs and lows of relocating to the Costa del Sol from real people who have been through the journey themselves, and of course our wonderful experts. If you have been enjoying the show so far, remember to hit subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating or review.
We absolutely love hearing your thoughts. Please send any questions that you would like us to answer on the show to warner@wlcostaproperties.net. Or you can pop us a message on our socials, which are in the show notes. Remember, you can also visit the website www.wlcostaproperties.net.
See you on the next episode, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.